Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. You wanna know what one of my favorite hobbies is? Camping. I fucking love it. You pack up your sleeping bag, your tent. Hopefully you packed it away right so that it's nice and clean, you know. If not, c'est la vie. But you head out into the woods. You set up your shit, you get a campfire going, you cook some good food with your friends. Sometimes you drink, sometimes you smoke, whatever your cup of tea. Just a good vibe. Usually you don't have service, so there's no electronics. So you can totally escape from the bullshit of modern society. And another thing I like about it, sometimes the moon's out, sometimes it's not. When the moon's not out, boy, that shit's spooky as fuck. But I love it. One reason I'm talking about this is I'm currently standing in the swamps of Florida. And it's dark as shit. I'm not really camping. Here we go. Here's a story they don't teach you in textbooks. And there's a reason they don't teach you. Because it breaks away from the narrative that African Americans are subservient. Because this story talks about defiance, resistance, freedom. Back when African American freedom in the New World didn't exist. Today we're going to talk about the Black Seminoles and the Seminole Wars. I'm knee-deep in some water that smells like shit. Something moves beneath the surface. I can't tell what it is. I just hope it's a catfish and not a fucking alligator. The time machine was struggling when we landed, and now it's gone silent. It's been throwing some error codes. The only downside? The inventor is 190 years in the future. I can't really call him. Because it's December 1835, and we're in the middle of the Second Seminole War. The United States thinks they're king shit. They've always thought they were king shit. But they're about to learn a lesson. And they still refuse to learn it, even today. You can hear soldiers ahead. It's the U.S. Army. They're trying to whisper. They fucking suck at it. There's metal clinking. One guy's coughing like he's fucking dying. Turns out they're headed towards something called the Withlacoochee River. They think this is a routine operation, just a regular patrol. They have no fucking clue what they're walking into. Next to you, Yahahajo, Mad Wolf. He tells you, they come in a straight line, always in a straight line. Yahahajo is a Seminole scout. His body's painted for war. He's got a rifle in his hand. This is the kind of man who's killed men, and he'll do it again. He nods toward the soldiers. You said your people used to fight in the mountains? This is not the mountains. This is a place that eats armies. And he means it. Because these swamps, these rivers, the mosquito-choked mangroves are a fucking weapon. In the distance, you hear it. A crack. Then another. It's a musket. Then voices. Then screams of pain. I move with Yahahajo, ducking low, weaving between the mangroves until I can see. The U.S. detachment has been ambushed. Bodies drop. Gun smoke hovers over the water. Seminole warriors melt back into the woods, reloading on the move. They don't fight like Europeans. They don't fight a textbook war. They fight like people, fighting on their own fucking land, with everything to lose, and no surrender on the table. The ambushed unit's commander tries to rally. Bayonets! Form! A shot hits him square in the chest. He folds into the river. Gone. Yahahajo exhales slowly. They should have just left us the fuck alone. Then he looks at me. You wanted to know why there is a war? And this question, this is where we start to unravel how a nation that calls itself the land of the free went to war against the people who had already built a refuge for the enslaved, the hunted, and the displaced. Florida was a sanctuary for freedom long before it became a retirement community. This is where we talk about the Black Seminoles, about Osceola, about John Horse, about Abraham, about Garcon, about the Treaty of Payne's Landing, about Andrew Jackson, that fucking piece of shit, about 3 wars that the U.S. government pretends were minor, even though they lasted longer than the American Revolution, the War of 1812, and the Mexican-American War combined. This is the shit they don't teach you in school. And there's a reason. Yahahajo moves forward. He tells me to follow. As we walk deeper into the swamp, he begins to tell me a story. A story that starts long before the first shot. A story about Spanish Florida and a promise of freedom. A story about runaways and resistors and people who refuse to be owned. Yahahajo pushes aside a curtain of Spanish moss and points toward a clearing. I can't see shit. The sun ain't even up yet. He stops moving and speaks. This did not begin with your generals, he says. It began with the people your country tried to own. And that's the fucking truth. The Seminole Wars don't start with a battle. They don't even start with the Seminole. They start with slavery and runaways. In Spanish Florida, being the biggest middle finger to the newly formed United States. Because before Florida was a fucking vacation state, it was something far more radical. A fucking sanctuary. Because here's the thing. When the colonies had formed, Spain fucking hated Britain. And Britain hated Spain. Everyone fucking hated everyone. So Spain had a brilliant idea. If you reach Florida and convert to Catholicism, you are free. That was the law. Free. Not resold, not indentured, not kinda free, but fucking free. And this was in the early 1700s. Nearly a century before the United States even pretended to give a fuck about emancipation. I mean, imagine the implications. Just imagine being enslaved in Carolina or Georgia and knowing that if you could just run south, if you could survive the swamps, dogs, militias, slave hunters, bounty hunters, there was a place where the law said you had a right to be free. So people ran. First in the hundreds, then in the thousands. And some of them made it. Fort Mose, a mile north of St. Augustine, founded in 1738. Run by formerly enslaved Africans who had escaped the British colonies. And this wasn't a fucking passive settlement. Fort Mose was a fucking military outpost. Black militiamen trained and armed by Spain. A direct threat to the slave economies of Georgia and the Carolinas. And it wasn't just symbolic. It was fucking humiliating for the colonists. Imagine being one of them piece of shit plantation owners, talking tough about supremacy, while your own workers keep running to Florida and picking up guns. It irritated the fuck out of them. So what'd they do? They attacked, raided, burned, demanded Spain return runaways. And Spain said, go fuck yourself. And every person who reached Florida stayed free. And here's the part they definitely don't teach in textbooks. These free black Floridians didn't just stay near the coast. When Spain lost power inland, they moved west and south. They intermarried with indigenous groups. They created new villages, new kinship lines. And they became part of the people who would later be called the Seminole. The Seminole are not an ancient tribe. They are not a monolith. They didn't arrive fully formed. They were Creek refugees avoiding European bullshit. Indigenous Floridians, the Timucua, Apalache, Miccosukee, Hitchiti speakers, Miccosukee speakers, and runaway Africans. And free black families from Fort Mose. Anyone who said, fuck colonizers, I'm not living under that fucking system. And they created something new. A nation built from fugitives, survivors, warriors, farmers, outcasts, multilingual leaders, and people who refused to die quietly. A people who understood guerrilla warfare before the U.S. Army even knew what the fuck it was. A people who would go toe-to-toe with the U.S. government for nearly 40 straight years. And a people who would force the United States to spend the equivalent of billions in today's dollars trying to destroy them. And a people who, by the end, were never conquered. And let's kill the myth. The U.S. did not buy Florida from Spain. The U.S. strong-armed Spain into giving it up. And there was a couple reasons why. Runaway slaves. Planters in Georgia and Alabama were fucking furious that thousands of people fled to Florida. It made them look incompetent. It made the slave patrols look weak. And it threatened the entire plantation system. And that piece of shit Andrew Jackson wanted to be a war hero. He used runaway slaves and Seminole raids as justification to illegally invade Spanish territory. And not once, but fucking twice. He burned villages, executed chiefs, committed war crimes, seized forts. It was fucking bullshit. And reason 3, cotton. Slavery was fucking expanding. More land meant more plantations. And more plantations meant more money. And the biggest reason of all, the U.S. hated the idea of a free black people living independently near the border. It terrified them. They thought the idea would spread into their colony. So Jackson invaded. He killed people. He blamed the Spanish, blamed the British, blamed the Seminole, blamed anyone but himself. And it worked. Spain gave up Florida because they realized they couldn't stop the fucking US anyway. And from that moment on, the US government had one mission: bully every smaller nation until it could become a big one. Oh, wait, no. Their mission was to get rid of the Seminole, and by extension, the Black Seminoles, at any cost. And this sets the stage for the First Seminole War, which in turn sets the stage for the Second and Third Seminole War. Which explains why I'm standing in this fucking swamp, watching US troops die in a place they never should have been in. Yahahajo looks at me. Your people think this is our home because we were born here. No. This is our home because we refuse to leave. He moves forward into deeper water. Come. I will show you the First War. The swamp begins to thin out as I follow Yahahajo. The water begins to drain into a narrow channel. There's a slight breeze. He stops in the middle of a clearing and turns to me. It looks like he's about to confess a crime, except it's not his own. Your General Jackson started this, he says. Not us. Not our people. Not even the Spanish. He came into our country before it was even your country. And that's exactly right. Because the First Seminole War wasn't a war. It was a fucking home invasion with a general who desperately wanted to make something of himself. And the Seminole, along with thousands of black refugees who had built communities here, just happened to be in the way. Imagine being one of them piece of shit Georgia fucking plantation owners with 200 enslaved people, knowing that any day another one could dip. And if they make it across the border, they could live free, arm themselves, come back for you, and free others, and possibly kill you. Jackson knew he could score political points by cracking down on this threat. He also knew that the US had no legal right to invade Spanish Florida. But Jackson had the same energy as our current president. He sees a sign that says "Do not enter" and thinks it's a fucking suggestion. The US wants Florida, but doesn't want to fucking pay for it. I mean, Florida was messy. The Spanish presence was collapsing, or it was confined to the coasts. Britain had been booted out after the Revolution, and the American settlers were creeping south. Creek civil wars spilled into Florida, and Seminole autonomy kept growing. And the Black Seminole population kept expanding. From Jackson's point of view, if Spain couldn't control Florida, the US had the right to step in. And that meant steal it. And this is the part they don't even whisper about in classrooms. On the Apalachicola River was a massive, heavily armed fort manned by free black men, escaped slaves, Seminole allies, and Spanish-trained officers. It was literally called Negro Fort by Americans because they were so offended by the idea of free black soldiers. It controlled river traffic. It protected runaways. It was an autonomous black stronghold on the edge of the American South. and U.S. generals hated it. The slaveholders feared it. The U.S. wanted to destroy it. So in 1816, the U.S. Navy fired a red-hot cannonball that hit the fort's powder magazine. The entire structure exploded. Hundreds died instantly. There was only 2 survivors, Garcon, their leader, and 1 other person. Babies, women, militiamen, leaders, entire fucking families. And the U.S. described the explosion as fortunate. It was a goddamn atrocity. And it sent a message. We will kill you before we let you live free near our borders. And the Seminole heard that message loud and clear. That's it for part 1. Stay tuned for part 2. Fuck ICE. No kings. Liberty and justice for all.